All the way back in August of 2022, me and a few of my friends over in the Discord went to Insomnia to have a look at what all the fuss was about. Whilst we were there, we had so many great experiences. There were so many stalls selling cool merchandise, some indie developers showing off new projects that they had, and even some of the heavy hitters showing off some of the new projects that they had in the works. We also did a zombie experience, which was incredible. The actors there were brilliant, and the whole experience was just so fun. Honestly, it was just some of the most fun that I've had in and around the gaming space, but the thing that managed to interest me the most was this one little game that we managed to try out. Survive the Nights looked like such a strange experience, a survival multiplayer game all based around zombies. I mean, yeah, there's loads of them out there. You've got DayZ, 7 Days to Die. Really, you could say that they're all the same. Chances are, you might be right. But after 20 minutes of standing and chatting with the game developers and giving the game a go myself, I was quite intrigued to see what the game had to offer. So, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. Me and my friend both picked up the game and decided we would give it a try together. That was all the way back in August. Fast forward all the way to March, and we finally gave the game a try. We had both respectively played around 40 minutes alone at this point, just to see how it was played, and we found it uneventful doing it alone. And that's when the thought hit us. Maybe a survival multiplayer game would be better with multiple people. So we cracked our fingers, and we decided to start recruiting. We recruited the biggest, baddest team of ragtag mercenaries to help us try and survive the nights. We put the game on the easiest settings, and we learnt the secret to playing the game. It seems really out there, but it turns out that you just have to not die. We had our loot goblin, our builder, our noob, our guy that always runs away all of the time, and the guy that's always tired, and then there's the one that just sits in the back of the car. We played on for about 6 hours on the easiest difficulty, and then we decided it was time to ramp it up a little bit. So we changed all the settings, we made everything harder, stuff was harder to find, the horde was a lot harder, the zombies just had more health and they became a little bit more tanky, and that's when the game got more fun. After around 25 hours of playing this game, I can honestly say that I've seen the best and the worst that it has to offer right now. The main issue with this is that it's such a large spectrum that it becomes really hard to know where you need to draw that line. I mean, on one side, the game is very clearly unfinished. It's poorly optimised with some terrible gameplay issues. Driving in cars can cause screen tearing. If you hit into something while you're driving, you will do flips. And when I say flips, I mean it can be like an 8-year-old gambol down a mile-long hill. It rolls. The amount of times that I've stopped driving and gone to get out of the car, and it's just started rolling backwards. Just give us a parking brake, please. I really beg at this point. And then there's the combat. The combat in this game needs to be improved. Melee doesn't seem to work too great. Hitboxes are all over the place, and you and the zombies have to be sharing saliva if you actually want to bop them on the head with an axe. In one-on-one situations, it isn't really the worst thing, but when you've got an entire horde in front of you, it can be one of the most irritating situations going. The animations can just break down. If you knock down a tree, sometimes you can be waiting between 3 and 5 business days for the tree to actually fall, so you're able to turn it into logs. And that is of course if it actually does become able to be turned into logs. Sometimes it just disappears and you've wasted 40 seconds of your life, which isn't a huge problem. It's more of an inconvenience if anything, but it's still something to note. And that's just a few of the bugs that I've seen over the last few hours of playing this game. Trust me, there is a hell of a lot more. The game is currently in early access. Having released into early access in 2017, I honestly would have expected this game to be a lot further along in its development than it actually is, but nonetheless, this is Indie of the Month and there is a lot of reasons for it to be. Despite the game being a little bit of a mess, being relatively broken, you can very easily see that there is an awful lot of work going on in this game, despite it being really slow to come up. I've had a lot of fun playing this with my friends, and some of the bugs in this game have honestly been one of the reasons for it. We had a hilarious experience where we accidentally managed to lock our friends in the prison for half an hour of real time. It took us that long to just try and figure out how to get them out. The issue was that the guy that had everything to get them out ended up accidentally dying. But he glitched out so bad that his backpack with all of the necessary equipment we had to get them out just vanished. Which leads me on to one of the best and worst things about this game. It is honestly so brutal. You can spend days working on yourself to make sure that you have a lot of health, you have a lot of carry space, but then as soon as you die, it's all gone, which makes it even more important to keep yourself alive. It's one of the aspects of this game that just shows how survival multiplayer games should be played. Like if you were to play Minecraft on hardcore mode. There are some parts of the game that are lacking from the sense of survival. The way that you consume food and drink is great, but the frequency you need them throughout the game is a little bit naff. Having to consume a set amount of calories in a day means that you can just do what we did. You eat all of the food in the morning, and then you just forget about it until the next day. Then you'll just jump back in and, scoff some Jaffa cakes or something. One of the best things about this game is the map. With it being so large and having so much you can explore and do, it does add a good few hours on, and it makes it feel like the scenery can be changed. This really just allows you to not always feel like you're just doing the same thing. One thing I will say though, is a lot of the assets are just reused. There's 2 police stations in the game, and both of them on the inside are exactly the same, which is fine if you only really wanted to use one, but considering the best weapons and ammo are inside of these buildings, I think it would be strange to loot one of them and then just leave the other. But it isn't just police stations where the assets are being reused. Most of the buildings are pretty much the same throughout. If you find any row of shops in the games, you're almost certainly going to find the middle 2 being a barber shop and a small quickie mart. Which again, it isn't the end of the world, but it would be nice for a bit of a change sometimes. There's also some great destinations on the map that can't really be used as of right now. Like the airport looks fantastic, but there's nothing really to note there, at least that I could find. Then there's the prison, which is their latest addition to the game, and honestly that one is brilliant. I would highly recommend it to anyone playing to go and check out the prison because it is some of the most fun that all of us had while playing this game. And then there's the power station, which is just completely closed off and it's just labelled as coming soon, but we'll get to that a bit later. The game is brilliant in the way that it makes you take a random location in the game and then fortify it in order to survive the hordes of zombies that are going to be coming towards you. It forces you to strategize because if you have no clue what's going on, all of your hard work is going to slip away from you very quickly. This is something very different from most survival games that I've personally played. The game I've had the most fun with around this genre has to be The Forest, where you'd have to build everything that you needed, including the house. Having this be so realistic that you just have to jump into a random shop or house and just claim it as your own is one of the reasons why I found this so enjoyable. With this game being a survival multiplayer game, you'll find that there's quite a lot of crafting involved, and the crafting is one of the most important parts of this game. Without it, you won't be able to heal quickly, you won't be able to make weapons, make defences for your base, but with that being said, it's also relatively flawed. A lot of the things that you need to actually craft are tools that you have to find throughout the world, which is fine if it wasn't for the fact that there are so many that basically just all do the same thing, but they're just far enough apart that they don't actually work, so you need to find the accurate one. Plus then there's power tools. I mean, they're pretty cool, but they don't work right at the moment, but apparently in a future update, maybe they'll be more useful. So far, all I've really found, the electric drill is just great for bopping zombies on the head with. There's the vehicles in this game, which are inherently flawed, but it's a brilliant concept. And from what I've seen, it's just going to be built on over the next few years. The idea that getting a car up and running takes quite a lot of work makes the want and the need for one even more necessary. Not only do you need to make sure that you have the fuel to make the car actually run, but you need to make sure that the engine is completely together, which means you have to rip parts out from other cars to shove them into the chassis that you actually want to use, which I think is pretty awesome. After doing some reading, I also found that they're trying to add stuff in to make it so that you can use vehicles as roaming bases, which is really cool, and I'm excited to come back to this once a little bit more has been added. Which brings me on to the weird things that you see quite regularly throughout this game. The words, coming soon. Even the barbecue says that it's coming soon, which is worrying, but let's hope they can make some coolers and beers so at least a barbecue on the mountains with all your pals will be possible. The devs quite clearly have some incredible ideas for this game, and the whole coming soon aspect, although a little jarring, does make it seem a little bit more put together. There are regular updates to try and rectify bugs that people are finding. There's a plant growing system that right now basically just doesn't work, but I'm sure in the coming weeks it will be absolutely fine. I'm sure planting seeds was coming soon for a very long time as well. Now, Survive the Nights is not the most polished game. It's not even the best game in its genre, at least not now. But it's incredibly ambitious, and I really think that this is one of the things that have managed to capture my attention. If I played through this game solo, then in all honesty, I probably would have cut it off within an hour or two and decided that it wasn't really for me. But playing this through with a few friends, finding all of the hilarious bugs, and working out how to survive when the hordes come to fight, made this one of my favourite experiences. It's great to see that this genre is still alive, and that multiplayer games have not all succumbed to just being FPS messes or sports games just yet. This indie game has a lot of promise. My only hope for it is that they can speed up the process and try and get some more people on board to make this the zombie experience that everyone needs right now. Thanks for watching. Remember to like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and tell me what you think of the game down below. Are you going to pick it up yourself, or is it just not for you? Take it easy.